This is Barbas, just doing God's work.
Dante, get out of there! You're in danger!
Hello there, Seraphim 17 once again. This is my DMC, Dante Must Die Difficulty video walkthrough. This is mission 12, this is Under Siege, and unfortunately, it has nothing to do with Casey Ryback. There isn't even a blatant Casey Ryback joke thrown in for the fun. What this is the first half is us doing this limbo to the real world interaction stuff, which is a nice change of pace, but if I'm completely honest, I thought when you played the level again, for instance for scoring things, they would omit these sequences because they just seem pointless. But that's just the old Devilmaycry fan in me talking.
Let's go.
These do have a purpose. They build an emotional attachment to Kat, they show her struggle, they give her character some validation when bad things happen, and it's good. But you know, when you're not watching the cutscenes and you're playing purely for gameplay, it can wear on you a little bit. So the latter half of the mission is a massive gauntlet, but luckily enough, I think the gauntlet is probably easier on Dante Must Die than it was on Son of Sparda, and it's fun, which is important, because if you're not having fun, you know, you're not doing it right, I suppose. So instead of talking about the game, I'm going to talk about something different. I'm going to talk about a film I watched quite recently, a film that a lot of people are probably going to be talking about because everybody seems to love Quentin Tarantino except for me. And that is Django Unchained, even though it's Django. I know it's Django, the D is silent, but I prefer Django. There's just something badass about having a D at the start of your name that means nothing and makes no sense. Django Unchained. It's the new Tarantino film. It is a western. It features Jamie Foxx as the titular character, and it's got, I think his name is Christoph Waltz, who plays, is it Schultz, Dr. Schultz, the dentist who's with him, who's a bounty hunter. And it's pretty much a reimagining of a film that's already been made, but if you have any knowledge of Quentin Tarantino's career, you will know that pretty much every film he's ever made has been ripped off of several other films. Some of them almost shot-for-shot identical, but because they're quite obscure, often foreign films, not a lot of people know about it, so they just all call him a genius when you know, a lot of the times he's just a fucking plagiarist. But he's an indulgent plagiarist who does make good films. I'm just not the biggest fan of them, and I think a lot of them are overrated. This one, however, is probably my favourite Tarantino film, because I've got a thing for westerns, they're a guilty pleasure of mine, and he kind of tones down the overindulgence of, you know, unnecessary conversation for the sake of conversation. And don't get me wrong, he writes good dialogue, but half of it could be trimmed from the fucking film and it'd be an hour shorter and probably make more sense. But this time, I didn't feel like it had any of that filler. There's a couple moments where it teeters on the line of bad taste, where you're like, come on dude, just get to the fucking point, stop dilly-dallying, please just continue the narrative. But for the most, I think the film is great. There's 40 minutes are completely unnecessary. It should have ended in the house with a massive shootout, but instead, there is just the most shameful fucking cameo by Quentin, and he's putting on an Australian accent because he's got the guy from Wolf Creek who played the murderer, who's playing one of the bandits who's Australian, and he's just doing the worst accent ever. And not even that, he's looking really fat. So there's this really awkward moment of realising he extended this film for the sake of putting himself in it, but not only did he put himself in it, but he did a pathetic, ridiculous accent while he was there, and the entire sequence is completely pointless and contrived and just indulgent. I just don't understand it at all. But as far as the film goes, God, I loved it. So good. Christoph Waltz is amazing. He really is. Like, I thought he was good in Inglourious Bastards, and I actually didn't think Inglourious Bastards were all that great. There was moments in that film that I thought were amazing, but there were other moments I just thought, why the fuck are we talking about cake? Why the hell are we in a theatre? Why do we care? You know? I found it very difficult to enjoy the film. Because I thought it was going to be about guerrilla warfare and stuff like that, and it wasn't. It was more about, you know, people talking around a dinner table in Nazi Germany. But he was brilliant in that film. He was the right kind of crazy, and in this one, he's just as good. The dude is, God, he's so good. He really is. And every single scene he's in, I'm watching him, I'm captivated, and I'm enjoying it. And spoiler alert, his character doesn't make it to the end of the film. As soon as he dies, I completely lost interest. I really did. He carries the film so well. And that's not to say that Jamie Foxx is bad, because Jamie Foxx is great. Leonardo DiCaprio puts in a stellar performance. Samuel Jackson is also, you know, just the right amount of creepy, just the right amount of poignant. There's a lot of depth to it, and a lot of people are going to see, you know, racial undertones, and it's just a film about racism and slavery and apartheid and all that good stuff. But there's much more to it than that. It's got subtleties, and when it gets violent, boy does it gets violent, which is great. And like I say, I think it's Christoph Waltz. I think that's his name. The guy's amazing. He's absolutely amazing. There's a couple of silly scenes thrown in there that I think are, you know, historically incorrect. There's one featuring the Klan, even though I don't think the Klan were around at that time. But it's great because they're shitting on this guy's wife for cutting holes in bags that they're putting on their heads because none of them can see. And there's just this awesome, you know, it's cognitive dissonance at its finest, because there's a part of your brain thinking, this is the Ku Klux Klan, essentially. This is, you know, one of the biggest bigoted, hatred-breeding, you know, communities in any social circle, and yet there's this really hilarious and mundane situation that's happening, and you can't help but be entertained and think it's very, very funny. And it's a good scene. But there are unnecessary parts of the film, like I mentioned. I think the last 40 minutes could have been trimmed, because the only real point in them, to me, in my opinion, is as an excuse to see Jamie Foxx's cock, an excuse for Quentin Tarantino to do the worst cameo I've ever seen him in. And I'm not one of those people that thinks Quentin's a bad actor, and I'm not one of those people that usually scorns him for having cameos, because I thought he was fantastic in From Dusk Till Dawn. I thought he was excellent in that movie. I thought he was fine in Desperado. It's just, you know, the older he gets, the worse he gets. he's doing a reverse Clint, and I just don't get it. But one part of the film I completely hated was the death of Schultz, because it doesn't make any sense. This is a guy who is situationally aware all the time. He's a bounty hunter in a lawless age where you've got to be or you're dead, essentially. I said essentially 3 times in the space of, what, a minute? It's not very good practice. And he shoots a very important character, because the character is a pig of a man. And then he turns around and, you know, goes, I couldn't help it, type deal. With full knowledge that there's a security guard behind him, the bodyguard of the guy, who has a sawn-off. You've got 2 bullets in that Derringer. Why did you not shoot the guy, spin round, shoot the other guy? And the reason is simple. They needed to kill him off, and this is the way they chose to do it. And it's a glorious shot to the chest that knocks him into a bookcase that looks great. But it's just so lazy. It could have been so much better. And it almost feels like a disservice to the character, because he's so cool and so awesome, and then he just gets shit-stomped by something that would have never caught him out. But as it stands, Django Unchained is a fantastic film. It's about 2 hours and 40 minutes long, so it's a long haul, but it doesn't feel long until Quentin Tarantino turns up and you realise, why the fuck is this section in the film? But that aside, I loved it. Loved everything about it, and that's coming from somebody who does not worship Quentin Tarantino. The same way I don't worship, you know, what's his fucking face? Johnny Depp. I liked Johnny Depp before it was cool to like Johnny Depp, and that's because he was a good actor in good films, and then he just went weird. Same with Tim Burton. I loved Tim Burton during the Batman days, during the Beetlejuice days, you know, during the Edward Scissorhands days, and nowadays there's people walking around with shirts and bags and dressing up like him who have never seen the films, which I don't understand at all, and I'm not part of that parade, but watch it. It's a great film. It's well worth your attention. But I should really talk about the gameplay, even though, you know, we've fought every single enemy you've seen so far. You know how to fight them. There's nothing really unique about this situation other than, I don't know what the checkpoints are like, but I think it's a gauntlet, so if you mess up, you've probably got to do it all again. Luckily enough, I was having fun. I was in the zone. I was just beating people up. And I've got to say, I don't care for the Devil Trigger aesthetic on this game. I preferred it when it's like an aura. And this game does do auras really well, so it would have been nice to see what it looked like if it had one. Like a full-on Dragon Ball Z aura, that would have been great. Everybody turns gold, starts sweating, making really profound statements. But This is when it gets a little bit annoying, when you're waiting for the guy to die. Like, come on, bro, you ain't got that much HP, really? If I could just use any other weapon, you would be finished in seconds. But that right there is a witch. I have no idea if she's been there the entire time, but I got real fortunate with the camera work to not aggro her, or she could have made that much worse than it was. But pull the swords, punch them back, very reminiscent of that doctor off Devilmaycry 4 with the gladiuses. Although the gladiuses were fairer, because they weren't as bullshitty as these swords. These swords will make a right angle turn at the last possible instant to hit you, and it's really cheap. But break a shield, beat her up, get some nice vengeance now it's just you and her if you've managed to stack the enemies in such a way that it is you and her. And keep on swinging. But the orbs of this game, I was not expecting them to be as pointless as they are. Because the only thing you can do with the orbs is buy items. And I don't buy items. So it's a big shame. Because I like getting orbs. And one of the things that disappoints me most about this game is another trivial Devilmaycry thing that only, you know, the people that have a big appreciation for the old games will probably miss. And that's the caches of orbs that you could find, where when you stood on random pillars, they gave you a ton of orbs. But on this game, the orbs are nowhere near as highly multiplied as they were previously. So on this game where you'll get 2 or 3 orbs, on the old one you'd get 200 or 300. And it's all relative. Ooh, these are bastards. So these are rage spawns, and this is one of the things that I really, really wish Ninja Theory had not done, because this reminds me of God of War 2, and if you're wondering what I mean if you didn't play that game, those little things will grow up into big things if you do not kill them quickly. It's nowhere near as bad news as it was in God of War 2, because when they grew up into fully grown Cerberuses, you were in for a world of pain. On this game they turn into rages, and the rages are a nuisance, but they're not as bad. And the best way to avoid it is to draw all the enemies towards you with the Aquila and then spam the area of effect attacks with it. Keep doing that until they die, knock them off the edge, be merciless, be ruthless, get to them as quick as you can, and it'll mean that you only have to fight the bare minimum amount of rages. As you can see, I've got no patience for this one. I am full-blown cheesing it with Aquila, but why not? They're a nuisance. They're not the most fun enemy to fight either, the giant blue porcupines. But I do believe there's a second one, and he's being extremely passive now because the camera's not on him, so it's allowing me to beat his buddy up. Did you see him just then? He turned up for a moment to remind me that he's there. And he's a red elemental one, so I'm not doing any residual damage on him. And blue's just died, so the red guy gets real mad, and he's going to start trying to do the sonic spin into me. He does it twice, and then he generally de-aggros. There you go, he's just come out of it, and then we can go to just beating him up. Excuse me. I love it when that happens. When you see them go for the attack and you release yours and you get that parry. It's really satisfying. That was a demon dodge on the swipe. That was a nice finishing off. And I think we're done. Yeah, we are done. So there you go, guys. Thank you for watching, and you take care now.